This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put the South at the center. I'm Dhanya Rajendran, your host, and as usual, joining me in the studio is my co-host, Pooja Prasanna, the reporting head of the News Minute.
Hello.
So last week has been very eventful for Pooja. In fact, for us, we watched Kerala Story 2 and we published a video review. If you haven't watched Pooja's review, then please do go and watch it.
I have to tell people that my producer Megha, who's producing this show, Megha and I had to go for, let me explain. Our colleague Lakshmi Priya came because there was a review. Dhanya inflicted it upon herself just in solidarity.
No, I mean, how do you engage with propaganda if you don't actually engage with it, right? So I do want to watch, I want to read, I want to understand. I do compulsively even go check what do some of these hate propagators actually say on their social media handles.
But somebody, I must say, somebody in comments was kind of enough. They put 100 rupees. They said, this is towards your therapy. So thank you for that.
But that's one movie where I couldn't finish my popcorn bowl because
I felt physically sick, right?
Yeah, I mean some parts of it were really horrendous. And what is perhaps dangerous is that it's not a very badly made movie also. Anyway, going away from Kerala Story 2, before we plunge into the headlines of the week, let me remind you, South Central is a podcast that drops every Friday. You can listen to us on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple. And I used to tell all of you, go to Spotify and like it. And many of you diligently did. But it seems like that stopped. Do not stop. Go back to Spotify, like the podcast. And this week, we have published a very important story on the News Minute. It's on Praveen Pagadala. Praveen is a Christian preacher. Actually, he was a Christian apologetic who died on March 24, 2025 in Andhra Pradesh. Why did his death become so controversial? Why did Christians across the two Telugu states protest? Why did they never believe the police version that Praveen was actually intoxicated by alcohol and he had multiple accidents, 3 accidents, and in the 4th accident, he actually passed away? It's a long form story. Do read it. Janvi has spent months trying to talk to people. It was not easy because a lot of them were very wary of talking to the media because the government in Andhra Pradesh has taken a position that anybody who even talks about it, there could be cases filed against them. It's behind a paywall, but it'll be very well worth your time. Also to understand how apologetics work.
I was going to ask you. So
yeah. No, but they should read the story.
That's a subsect? It's a sect?
No, it's not a subsect. It is just a group of Christians who do a particular thing and they're spreading across South India now. They're there in Kerala, Tamil Nadu. They're called Christian apologetics. So do read what is the kind of work that they do. The story is behind a paywall, as I said, but there's one more paywall story we published last week. This is by Furkan. He did a story on the new NDTV for a new India, which is headed by CEO Rahul Kanwal. We got a lot of comments from people who are not from within the media that it was an insightful story. So do check out both these stories and write to us at southcentral@thenewsminute.com. Now, over to Pooja for the headlines.
We start with Kerala. CPIM gears for the finalization of candidates. It will be a busy week. The Kerala's ruling party enters a decisive phase this week with its state secretariat and committee convene on Thursday and Friday. By the time this is out, they would have convened. And they will be finalizing the candidates for the upcoming elections. In a related headline, this is from our weekly Power Trip, which is our political newsletter, why KK Shailaja may be fielded from a new constituency. Dhanya, how much do we want to tell our viewers today?
No, as in the CPIM says that they're going to change your constituency, which is Mattanur now, to Peravur. This is a constituency that she has won once and also lost once. So she's going to go back there and contest. And they're saying that Mattanur is a safe seat and we don't give safe seats to any big leaders because they should take up a challenge and go win somewhere else. But Peravur is not going to be an easy battle for KK Shailaja. For 2 reasons. It has a large Christian population. Sunny Joseph, the Congress leader, has been a 3-time MLA from this place. He is quite popular there. It's not impossible also. But there is, I feel there is an undercurrent of, shifting Shailaja or coming up with new rules. No, coming up with new rules. And anybody in the CPM you ask, on record, off record, whatever record, they will never say one word which goes against, what the party says.
And by party, euphemism is
Pinarayi
against Pinarayi
says.
Vijayan.
Yes.
Given that Kerala is only state where they've been in power now, I think he's become the party. Next headline also from Kerala. BJP chief links Kerala's low IMR, infant mortality rate, to migration of youth, and he draws criticism for that. The person we're talking about is Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He was responding to recent comments made by CPM Rajya Sabha MP John Brittas, who'd spoken about the state's growth under the LDF government, and he'd cited IMR indices in an ANI podcast with Smita Prakash.
Yeah, so Rajiv Chandrasekhar is saying that, yeah, you will have low IMR because people are migrating anyway. That's the logic that he has used.
And he was a union minister at one point. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Stalin slams union government for use of Hindi names in Tamil English scripts. This is what his tweet says. They have written Kartavya Dwar at the entrance gate of Trichy Zone Railway Office. They have already imposed the name of Bhavishya Nidhi Bhavan on EPFO offices. They are also writing the Sanskrit name in English fonts for criminal laws, BNS, BNSS. And the name of the Union Water Resources Ministry has also become Jal Shakti.
How is Provident Fund Office Bhavishya Nidhi Bhavan? Is Bhavishya
Future. So this is money for future.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, will it be an election issue, you think, in Tamil Nadu?
I think it's a permanent election issue, right? The erosion of federalism, the imposition of Hindi is a constant issue in Tamil Nadu, and I think there is a vote bank for it also, which is why the DMK keeps at it and the AIDMK keeps losing that vote bank.
Yeah. Even Karunanidhi couldn't do it. Vijay questions DMK's bid for consecutive term. The actor-turned-politician Vijay launched a strong attack on Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, questioning DMK's ability to return to power for a second consecutive term. He called the task longer than the Great Wall of China. So,
I mean, first thing, we should stop calling him actor-turned-politician. I think he's just a politician. Second thing, I don't think it's a strong attack on anybody. It is just a speech. But Jayalalitha has done it in the recent past. She has won a consecutive term. And Stalin looks to be quite in a safe position now, considering the fact that the Congress will not be leaving the alliance.
Whereas it is actually Vijay's TVK which is left without an alliance for whatever reason. Anyway, moving to Karnataka. Chief Minister hits back at BJP for accusing him of spying on DK Shivkumar. Leader of opposition in the assembly, R. Ashoka, had alleged that Chief Minister Siddaramaiah is spying on State Congress Chief DK Shivkumar. Siddaramaiah has hit back, saying it's desperate statements of a jobless opposition. He also, many of his supporters and Siddaramaiah too, has been circulating pictures of bonhomie between him and DK Shivkumar, and then they said that he also said that they can never poach DK Shivkumar, something to that effect.
I don't think anything will happen till the end of these elections because that is too much of a risk for the Congress.
Yeah. Karnataka government not to permit processions over Kamene killing. Protests must follow legal framework, says Home Minister. This is interesting given that the Chief Minister himself has expressed regret, his condolences over the passing away of Kamene or the killing of Kamene.
The Karnataka government, no surprises it has done this because for many, 3 years since the government has been in power, people have been asking them to go to the High Court and to ensure that there's a reversal of the judgment by the High Court, which only allows protest in the Freedom Park of Bengaluru. But the Karnataka government doesn't want to do it. They have filed cases against people who demonstrated against Israel, farmers who have protested. So I am not surprised at all that the government is saying no protest elsewhere.
No, but they're saying at least it'll be allowed with a certain framework. I remember...
Which is again in Freedom Park.
Be that as may, here in MG Road, when I was there to cover a pro-Palestine protest, there was lathi charge. So, yeah. Dubai authorities stepped in. Indian embassy absent, says Karnataka MLC Bhoje Gowda after return from West Asia conflict zone. He's a JDS MLC. JDS is in alliance with the BJP. And he said that he found himself stranded in Dubai amid the escalating tensions involving the United States, Israel and Iran. And he alleged that the Indian embassy failed to extend any support during the crisis and credited the Dubai administration for ensuring his safe return.
I think he also thanked the Karnataka government for being in constant touch.
He took the name of Krishna Bairegowda, who's a sitting minister in the government. But I'm just curious to know, we tried contacting him, what a state government and its representatives could do that the Indian government could not. Bulldozer rule of Congress in the state alleges BRS's working president K.T. Ramarao. This was something that even the Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan said, that after Karnataka, the Congress in Telangana too is using bulldozers to demolish houses of economically poorer sections of the city.
I think this is also in relation to the story that we had put out a few days ago about this one particular apartment called Madhu Park Ridge, which stands in the way of this Gandhi Sarovar project, which the government wants to build. And it is going to be demolished. We have a video story on it done by Anjana Meenakshi.
Another headline from Telangana, Kishan Reddy seeks white paper on Telangana's finances. He says the centre, that's the union government, gave nearly 12 lakh crores in 12 years.
12 crore. Yeah.
Union Minister for Coal and Mines G. Kishan Reddy has in fact demanded that the Telangana government release a comprehensive white paper before the state's budget. And he said that they were meant for drainage networks, road widening, railway expansion, bridges, flyovers, hospitals, etc., etc. And our last headline from Andhra Pradesh, Andhra government takes measures to run 10 medical colleges under the PPP mode in 2 financial years, the minister has announced.
Okay, that sounds like a positive headline.
Correct.
But as we had a South Central previously, it's not a positive development where the government is giving medical colleges to PPP mode, which means there will be private investment. And we do not know how this investment will pan out in the years to come. So positive spin to a negative development.
But do go and watch that episode. We've put the link in the description.
So it's
a wrap for this week on the headlines. Yeah.
Yes, we are done with the headlines and we'll now move on to the discussions of the week. So we have a very special guest joining us today on South Central. It is Dr. Thangam Subramaniam. She's a gynecologist based in Bengaluru with over 30 years of experience. Now, Dr. Thangam is part of Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, a medical humanitarian non-profit organization that ensures medical care in some of the most conflict-ridden areas of the world. Dr. Thangam has served with MSF in Yemen and Afghanistan. During the COVID pandemic, she worked as a frontline volunteer in COVID care units. But the reason why she's here today is because she fought a very important case in the Karnataka High Court recently. Dr. Thangam wanted to donate her kidney to a stranger, which is quite difficult under the Indian laws. So she approached the court saying that she would like to make this altruistic donation, and the court allowed her. So she's just undergone a surgery a few days ago, but she's still come here to join us here on South Central. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Thangam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Thangam, you decided that you want to donate one of your kidneys way back in 2016, I think. So it's been almost 10 years, this journey for you. Can you explain to our audience what exactly happened in these last 10 years?
Yes. So my journey of trying to donate one of my kidneys started a while back. And when I signed up for the posthumous donation of my organs in 2014, that was a very new concept at that time. And I signed up for it and was carrying around the organ donor card. Even now I have it with me. But I came to know that even if you have done all the paperwork and everything is in order, but at the time of your death, whether your organs, even you have pledged and you have made your wishes known to your next of kin, everything is okay. But still, the actual conversion to donation happens in very, very few cases. It might be because of the, where my death happens, place of death, time of death, mode of death, immediate availability of next of kin to sign. Even if I have signed earlier, the next of kin should be able to sign that paper, allowing my organs to be harvested. And so I realized that the control is taken away from me, and it is more on circumstances and other people. And I did not want that. I wanted to be in charge, and I wanted to donate an organ, and the one which I can spare, which I have 2 of when I'm alive without risking my life, is the kidney. And so I decided I want to donate my kidney. So then started the, I didn't know how crazy this idea was at that time. I approached the head of transplant department in my hospital, Dr. Sudarshan Ballal. And though he was surprised at my request, he had not had such a request before. But luckily for me, he said, okay, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. He did not outright, rule it out. And then slowly we started, okay, let's work you up. Let's see whether you're fit, medically fit to do such a thing. And then they found within a few weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, I was found medically fit. There's no problem. My kidneys were working fine and I could do well with a single one. Then the task of convincing my family was not easy. It was not easy at all. They were totally against it. They suggested many, many alternatives to help people. You set up a trust. You contribute. You tell your friends to contribute. Then that trust fund can be used for people who are undergoing dialysis. And there are so many ways. I said, I want to do it the way I want to do it. Setting up trust funding and all that are more managerial things. And I'm not a finance person. I want to do it the way I would like to do it. And I want to donate my kidney and to send a message that organ donation is safe and to spread the awareness about organ donation. One donor can save many lives. And that happened over a few years actually. I had to get my husband to speak to my nephrologist and surgeon. They sat him down and told him, they gave him articles, medical proof that it's not a very dangerous surgery for the donor. And the risk is the same as for a cesarean section. Well, finally they did come through. They did come around and they realized that I'm not going to let it go. I'm quite, perseverant in that. And they finally agree. And they gave their no objection certificate. So that was the other thing. I needed to get NOCs from all my first degree relatives. My husband, my father, my brother, my adult children. And then the paperwork. I had to get a family tree drawn. I had to go to the BBMP, which is the Bangalore Brihat Mahanagara Palike, which is the corporation of Bangalore. And that took a few months. And then I had to go to the police station for police verification. Again, that was met with a lot of, suspicion. What is she doing? Why the hell is she doing this? And then eventually they came around, the police constable with a team of people from the police station. I was videographed at home. They interviewed me. They interviewed my family. They even talked to my neighbors, interviewed my neighbors to find out. Basically, I think all this is to make sure there is no monetary transaction for the donation, considering so many scams that we get to hear. So all this procedure happened, and then, but still there is something called a hospital-based authorization committee, which has to approve of every single transplant that happens in my hospital. And that committee members were sensitized to this unusual request by my doctor. And they were quite discouraging. They said, no, I don't think this can happen. We have never done this before. I don't think it is possible. That was the sort of feedback that they got. Then they would neither tell, but they appreciated the thought behind it. But at the same, they didn't want the onus of having approved such a thing to fall on themselves. So finally, my doctor took a call. Okay, let's call their bluff. Let us place your case in front of the committee. Let's identify a recipient from the transplant waiting list and match you and place you. In case they approve, well and good. You can go ahead with the donation. And if they don't, they will have to give it in writing, the reason and why they have not approved. And then it will give us a point to rethink what we are going to do. And so that happened in 2023. A 24-year-old orphan boy was identified from the transplant waiting list. He was in end-stage renal kidney failure and was undergoing dialysis alternate days. And he was matched with my blood group and tissue types, and our file was placed. They interviewed me, the committee consisting of some 8-10 members. It consisted of administrative cadre of Karnataka, health secretary or the chief secretary, one of them, someone from the legal judiciary also, and some NGOs, some doctors, and Manipal hospital head also was there. So 8-10 members were there. They videographed me. They gave me a patient hearing. Then they interviewed my family. And then they interviewed the recipient also. I was seeing him for the first time that day. And at the end of this long session of almost an hour, they gave me a no. They said, no, you cannot donate.
Dr. Tangam, I just want to ask you something. So you described, we'll go to why you went to court, right? But before that, this whole process that you talk about of convincing yourself, then your family, then your doctor, etc., how long did this itself take?
Yeah, this entire process, I started in 2016. And to reach my file to reach in front of the committee was 2023 March. So it was almost like 7 years, 6.5 to 7 years at that time. And in between, there was a gap because of COVID. The entire transplant program had fallen on its face. There was nothing happening in my hospital because of COVID. Almost 1 year, 12 to 18 months, we did not have any elective surgeries. That was another setback. And the reason they gave, to deny permission was the most ironic of all. They told, since a relationship could not be established between the donor and the recipient, we are denying permission. And that was what was very, very disheartening for me. My whole premise was altruistic donation, that I did not know the recipient. If they had told, okay, at the current point in time, there is no legal sanction for altruistic donation, hence permission denied, I can understand that point. What they denied was, we could not establish that you two are related, and hence we are denying permission. I felt quite down for quite some time. I was, maybe it's a dead end. I've done all that I could. And for almost a year, I was not, thinking about it. And then I concentrated on my MSF work. It was around the same time that I was matched for Yemen. And I went on my first mission to Yemen at that time, 2023. And then I came back and I approached my transplant when I was back with a lot of vigor again after my MSF stint. I approached the transplant department again. Sir, I'm back. I don't want to give up. And at that time, I found that recipient with whom they had matched me earlier, that boy had passed because he could not get a kidney. The dialysis either stopped working or his disease had progressed a little more, or maybe he could not afford, I don't know. He was an orphan boy. Somehow he was being, kept on the treatment by his distant uncle. So I don't know which of these factors played a role, but I realized that he had passed. And then that was a big blow for me. And I almost took like a moral responsibility as to why did I give up? Then that was when I decided, through the help of Dr. Ballal, I asked, sir, what is the next step? He said, whatever possible at our level, we have done, Tangam. I think next is we have to go to court. And that was the decision which I took in January of 2025, that I will go to court. He introduced me to Dr. Joga Rao, my advocate and a very strong supporter. Because of sir, I am here today. Otherwise, this would not have happened. So he said, give me all your documents. Let me study it. I don't give you a promise because it has never happened before. You go and come back. And when you come back, I'll have an answer. And that was when I was going for my second mission with MSF to Afghanistan. So I came back in end of May. So June, he said, doctor, I think we have a fighting chance. If you are okay, I will file it in the High Court. And I said, yes, please go ahead. And he filed the case in June of 2025. There were a few hearings in which Dr. Jogarao represented me. And in December, I got the court order in my favor, directing the hospital-based authorization committee to permit me to donate one of my kidneys to a recipient from the transplant waiting list.
Doctor, we read about how the donation in India particularly is very, very low. Something like 0.65 for every million is what I read. Now, this is of course for deceased donation, not even living donation like what you did. You did cover some ground on this, but if you can tell our viewers, what can they do to make sure that their family is on board, not just legally, but emotionally? If you can tell, how do you convince them that after somebody is deceased or brain dead, the family abides by this commitment?
So like you said, the organ donation is measured in how many people per million population. It's called PMP. The highest in the world is in Spain. It's about 49 to 50 people per million donate their organs. And in India, even though we are the most populous country in the world, it is less than 1. It's around 0.3. And the reason I feel for this dismally low organ donation rate, it can be fear, it can be superstition, and it can be suspicion that there may be some trading happening. So all this, each of this will have to be addressed. And my sort of this action of donating my kidney is actually to set up an awareness that organ donation is safe. And we will have to talk to each person in the family. Each one, I had to talk to each one separately. Okay, tell me why. Why are you afraid? Is it because, of course, family members will care for you. So is it because of the risk of surgery that you're saying no? What is the reason? Is it because you feel that something goes wrong, then you'll be left with an invalid? Is that the reason? What is we just keep asking them, and then you will realize that it's just out of love that they really don't want you to donate when you're alive. And maybe because I'm a medical personnel, I was able to convince them better. But regarding posthumous organ donation, we have actually no reason to say no. We don't have any reason to say no. There are so many countries which have an opt-out program. That means unless you give it in writing that I do not want my organs to be harvested after my death, it is assumed that you are pledging your organs. That is the case in Singapore. That is the case even in Spain, which has the highest. So I'm not telling we will jump to that straight away. India, we are far from it. But at least if we can increase the awareness, after your death, your organs are of no value to you. And one donor can save 8 to 10 lives, including all the organs and the tissues that can be harvested. And the other message which I wanted to give because of my organ donation is, remember that you need to take care of your health. Your organs cannot be useless at the time of your death. You have to be healthy. You have to maintain your health. You should not be diabetic. You should not be hypertensive. So many other things. Your organs should be in good shape to be of use to another person. So the message to youngsters is take care of your health and consider organ donation.
So just for everybody's perspective here, in India, we do have laws which which dictate how organ donation should be made. The Transplantation of Human Organs Act 1994, it's gone through several amendments, and there's a 2011 amendment. Certain states have their own rules. I think Tamil Nadu has the transplantation of human organs and tissues rules. Andhra Pradesh has rules. Several states have their own rules also. So altruistic donation, which is a person donating an organ to a stranger, is not barred or prohibited by the law as far as I understand. I did try to speak to a doctor before we came for this session. But what normally happens is that if, let's say, I'm someone who wants to donate an organ, I will tell the system that I want to donate to a particular person, right? That he's not, she or she not my relation, but I still want to donate. And the system understands that. In Dr. Thangam's case, initially, like your doctor correctly pointed out, let's call the bluff. Initially, she was willing to just donate to a person. She had not identified one. So it was very easy for the committee to just say that, no, this can't go on. But when she found a person also, why they said no to her is a mystery. But let's also not forget that there is a reason why these laws are in place. Because in India, we have seen, I've covered after the tsunami, there was a huge racket where the kidney racket was there. There was a liver donation racket where poor people are given money and they're made to do these donations. Recently in Tamil Nadu, which I think is one of the states which has been quite vigilant over organ donations, we saw a scam playing out in 2 hospitals in the state, and the state was once again forced to reissue rules that every donation must go through a very strict vigil that the committee has to say, no matter it's a relative or distant relative or a stranger, whether the donor is alive or dead. So there is a reason, right, Dr. Thangam, that we have these laws in place. You are, of course, I don't know how to describe, but you're someone who went, who has done something which perhaps not many other people do. Therefore, for the system, you are someone they could not understand very fast.
Correct. I agree. I don't blame them at all. In fact, in my first committee sitting, I said, sir, I can appreciate. I'm not telling you to pass a law telling that whoever wants to donate to whoever, please allow. That is not my appeal. Take it on a case-to-case basis. Case-to-case basis. Without your approval, no one can donate. So when a case comes, very deeply scrutinize them. No problem. Go through all the details. Go through their bank statements, income tax, everything you go through. Convince yourself that there is no monetary transaction, and then only. But please don't deny me permission. That was my appeal.
And how are you feeling now? You've just gone through the surgery a few days ago. How are you feeling now? Yeah, no problem. I have 2 friends who had donated their organs, but these are to near relatives. And I know that it did take a lot of time for them to recuperate, sometimes months. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm like 3 weeks post donation. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling there's no undue pain. The small pain of the surgery will be there, which is expected, and hopefully I'm due for a checkup in another week, and I will most probably cleared for work. In another 1 week, 10 days, I should be back at work. That's my aim. And maybe in another couple of weeks, I should be back at my routine.
Ma'am, what are the organs one can donate as a living donor? Kidney is one. What are the others?
Kidney is one. Part of the liver is another. But kidney donation has been in practice for many, many, many years. Liver donation is a relatively new player on the field. It is not without risk. The liver is a very vascular organ. That means it has a lot of blood supply, and the preparation is separate. It is intense, and the preoperative preparation and this thing is intense. We can donate. In fact, I had suggested to my doctor, which I was, very much rebuked for. I said, sir, anyway, you're going to have me open. Why don't you take a little bit of the liver also? From the liver waiting list transplant you can give. Then my doctor lost his pitch and said, please keep quiet. It is not so easy as you think. Kidney is different. Liver is a totally different ball game. Yes, but part of the liver can be donated and it regenerates. Liver is an organ, it can regenerate.
considering my threshold of pain, I should be cracking jokes, but I will not. I will restrain myself because of how inspiring your story has been. But I want to let you go just asking something unrelated to what we've been speaking till now. As we know, there is a war playing out, which is being called the America-Israel-Iran war. You are someone who has served in a conflict-ridden, war-ridden region. What are your thoughts as you see the war around you? And last 1 or 2 years have been, I mean, not even 1 or 2, right? First we saw the Ukraine war, which is still going
3
on.
years almost.
Then the genocide in Palestine, which is again going on. And it's a third simultaneous war. And there are so many other civil wars happening across various regions, right?
What I would like to note is that I'm not a political person. I'm not a political person of who is right and who is wrong. What I find is that it's always the marginalized who are affected by war. And most often they are women. Most often they are women. The access to healthcare is affected. Like when I served in Afghanistan, I could see that they had lost their voice. They had lost their identity. The right to education is taken away from them. And their healthcare is in a dismal state. So whatever the war, wherever the war, whoever is waging it, finally it is the marginalized people, the underprivileged, and mainly women and children who are going to be massively affected. And if you can call it like a plea, because all wars have to stop. Nobody gains from a war. And my journey into MSF was sort of triggered by seeing a pregnant lady during the second day of the Ukraine war, I think February 25th of 2022, 4 years ago. I saw a pregnant lady being carried down a staircase of a bombed hospital, maternity hospital in Kyiv, Ukraine, by 4 civilians, I think, or maybe it was the hospital attendants or whoever. Fully pregnant lady. She was being carried down. And then the follow-up news came the next day that that lady had died. The baby also died. And somehow, though this idea of MSF was in my head since my medical school days, it never came to reality because I was, studies, then married, then children, then work, then children's studies and all that. But it kept nagging me. When are you going to do it? And that triggered, that sight of that woman, pregnant woman triggered. And then since then, I have seen that whether it is in Yemen or in Afghanistan, these are the 2 places where I have served, it is always women who are the sufferers. And nobody gains. It's not a question of who is right and who is wrong.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And just to wrap up, I want to remind everyone that I was just looking through the Act, the Transplantation of Human Organs Act. Point number 19 clearly talks about strangers donating organs, a part of the organs, and it says that the authorization committee can decide. So what happened to Dr. Thangam was, of course, pure reticence on part of the committee, but she's someone who didn't take no for an answer and went to court. Thank you very much, Dr. Thangam, for setting a precedent also in one way, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Feel better soon. Hope you're fit and back at work as soon as possible.
Yes, thank you.
Over the past days, the world has been watching the war involving Iran, the United States, and Israel escalate. It may feel geographically distant for us, but the effects are already being felt across the world, and India is definitely not insulated. From rising oil prices to the safety of millions of Indians working and living abroad, especially in the Gulf, this conflict can have serious implications for India's economy, diplomacy, and security. We have 2 guests joining us in the studio to discuss this. But since we're recording on Wednesday and the episode will go out on Friday, and by then a lot of things would have changed, we'll keep it as generic as possible. Joining us in the studio is Aditya Ramanathan. He's a research fellow at the Takshashila Institution, where he heads the Advanced Military Technologies Program and Takshila's work on outer space affairs. He focuses on the role of space in strategic affairs, nuclear weapons policy, the role of technology in India's military transformation. Thank you, Aditya, for joining us.
Great being here.
It's quite a portfolio. My
yeah,
God.
what is this Advanced Military Technologies program?
I didn't write that. But yes, that is one of our programs here.
Sounds a bit scary, but yes. Joining us is Nirmal. Nirmal Abraham is a columnist, a political analyst, and a professor of finance and international business. He has been associated with a lot of institutions, including the London School of Economics and Political Science, the IIM Indore, and he's also studied the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Welcome, Nirmal, to South Central.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I think the first and the most important question, Aditya, which everybody is asking, and I will come to Nirmal also, any TV debate that you take, that's the primary question, right? How long can this war afford to go? And everybody is giving different calculations. Some say it cannot go beyond a few weeks. Some say in 2-3 weeks it has to end. Looking at how things are panning, and we are seeing more countries, being dragged into it. As we speak, news is breaking that over Turkish airspace, one drone or one missile has been intercepted. So with more countries being dragged in, how long do you think this can go on?
If I knew exactly how long it would go on, I'd be making money on the markets. But I don't think, I think what we should understand is that the problem with war is that once the violence starts, once the shooting begins, all sides involved can get a vote. And that means that no one side can actually decide when the conflict ends. And I should just point out that even if this particular round of fighting ends, say, in the next week or 2 weeks, that doesn't mean that the underlying drivers of this conflict are going to end. Really, I mean, for our purposes, we can consider the beginning of this particular war in October 2023 with the Hamas attack on Israel. And since then, we've seen the Israelis basically systematically take out Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. So they're trying to, in a sense, destroy their enemies and defang Iran as well. Iran being a backer of both Hezbollah and Hamas, as well as the Houthis, but they haven't really been very directly involved there. And they've sought to defang Iran by taking out its nascent capability, which is its nuclear program, which is not yet ready for prime time to develop nuclear weapons and mate them with missiles and the likes. 2, they've been taking out Iranian proxies or Iranian allies, if you will, including Hezbollah. And finally, they've been systematically destroying Iran's missile and drone launchers as well as its production capabilities. So they've been doing all this to essentially ensure that Iran poses much less of a threat and has much less leverage over Israel. What they seem to be now doing is actually trying to take out as much of the senior leadership of Iran as they possibly can. This is sort of what they did with Hezbollah a little earlier. And it's an ambitious goal, and it may not be accomplished in one round of fighting. The Iranian state is deep. It's got institutions. There's a lot of people there who can take the place of those who have fallen. So it's not so easy to take it out. It's not brittle. But I don't think the Israelis, if they fail this time, I don't think they're going to call it a day. They're just going to bide their time and try again.
Nirmal, your thoughts?
I think this is going to go on for a few days. And the reason I think think in such a way is because of one is the elections. There's a consequential election coming up for both Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump in November. For Trump, it is the midterm elections. And it's almost certain that he will lose seats in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, which means that he will lose the ultimate power. And, everything that he wishes he does right now, that might change in November. For Benjamin Netanyahu, there's a parliamentary election coming up. And by the looks of it, he might as well lose his prime ministership in November. So they won't get another chance, especially with Trump, who is, probably the most supportive U.S. president that Israel has got, at least in the 21st century. If you look at his first term, he recognized Jerusalem as the capital, the official capital, recognized Golan Heights as official territory of Israel, brought about the Abraham Accords and ensured that they had good relations with the Arab nations. And even this term, he helped attack Iran's nuclear facilities for Israel. So Netanyahu knows that this is the best chance that they have, and they have to get it done soon, because you cannot extend it till June, July, or August, where it might heavily affect the chances of both Netanyahu and Trump in the elections. Two, since they've started the war and since they've gotten rid of the supreme leader, I think they're going to follow the same blueprint that they followed with Hamas and Hezbollah. With Hamas, if you notice the leaders, they took out the supreme leader. Today, an official in the US said they will take out the next next leader who's in line. This is going to be the strategy, because with Hamas, you saw Ismail Haniyeh being assassinated first, and then they had another leader, which was Yahya Sinwar. Sinwar was taken out, and then Mohammed Sinwar was taken out. Mohammed Deif was taken out, and that created this sense of fear within Hamas, and nobody wanted to, in fact, turn up to leadership. So that could be one strategy. On the other side, as Aditya mentioned, they will try to destroy the missile launchers, the rocket launchers. But even in that case, I still think Iran can keep up the fight, because they have drones and they have drone manufacturing capability. And I'm pretty sure it's being manufactured even now. So they might not run out of drones, and drones are very effective, especially when, sent out in swarms, to get out of the radar of even Iron Dome, for that matter. So yeah, I mean, this might go on, unfortunately, for quite a while. And the only way that this gets stopped is either two possibilities. One, there are signs that there could be a terrorist attack somewhere in the UAE, in probably Dubai or someplace where there are, more number of Americans and Britishers. That is a likelihood. The other likelihood is in the US. If you remember, in between 2020 and 2024, there were at least 10 million documented illegal immigrants, documented meaning documented in the administration, illegal immigrants that got into the United States, out of which 1,500 were identified as Iranians, out of which 789 were sent into the US. And those are people without documents. We don't know what their background is, what they precisely mean to do there. So if something goes wrong in the US or in the UAE or in any of the Gulf nations where there is a high population of Americans or Britishers, that could change the game. Otherwise, we are likely looking for a war that goes on for quite a while, at least a couple of weeks.
I know you're the experts in the room, but I still think this is just me putting it out there. I think that this can't be something like what we saw, the genocide against Palestine, because Iran, with its limited capability, seems to be playing the game quite well. They have kind of closed off the Strait of Hormuz, and then now the Houthis have also said they'll not allow commercial ships to pass through the Red Sea, which will have very serious consequences, financial consequences. It is unfortunate that the world seems more moved by financial consequences rather than humanitarian ones. But that said, very strategically, they have also attacked US embassies, or even with low-grade missiles across the West Asian part of it, which means that they'll all be mounting pressure on the US to wrap this up quickly, because they can't take a hit on their brand as a safe part of the world. So that's just me being optimistic, because we cannot see wars anymore.
Aditya, I want to just pick up from something which Nirmal said. He said that look at what happened to Hamas and Hezbollah, where the leadership was taken out, right? Like something that we look at when international experts speak about what's been happening in Iran, they all insist. In fact, the first few articles which came out, I think Foreign Policy, one of them had it, and everybody has been repeating the same thing, is that Iran's system is very robust, that it is not dependent on a leader. So taking out one leader, taking out 3 leaders, 5 leaders doesn't make a difference. In fact, it has been devised in such a way that it can go on regardless of who is in charge. Is that really true? Is there such a robust system like that?
Well, we don't have, perfect visibility into the Iranian system, but what they have put in place is a system where even if the top leadership is taken out, there's a succession plan, and it involves a council of people, a collective decision-making process. Two, a lot of authority has been delegated to people, so including the military command. So they just carry out, predetermined orders in the event that they're not getting in clear instructions. But look, ultimately, Iran, like any other country, functions on the basis of how much its own elites can cooperate with each other. There may possibly come a time when you take out so much of the senior leadership that you don't really have enough, the right kind of people to take, to take charge. You want people who have charisma, people who have buy-in, not just with other elites, but also with the population. So, I mean, that's something that, that's a potential risk that does exist, even for a robust system like that of Iran's.
So I was watching the Al Jazeera Iran chief. He says that at least Khamenei was restrained. Now he used this word, now mad people are in charge. So even that restraint is gone.
Yeah, always be careful what you wish for when you take out leaders. I mean, this is one reason why actually countries have been often hesitant to take out leaders, because at least in limited wars, at least if you have the leadership in place, you have people to talk to later. And when you keep taking out the leadership, you don't know who's going to replace them. Having said that, ultimately, if you take out enough leaders, you might actually end up weakening a system. I think Israel would be quite happy with in Iran that is in complete chaos. I don't know how likely that is, because while I think the Israelis and the Americans can degrade Iran's ability to hurt them, they can't really degrade Iran's ability to hurt their own people. Iran has a vast army, 350,000 odd people. It has the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, and as well as police forces. So even if there's an uprising again, and there have been several of them, they can probably quell those. The risk for Iran is that when you take out enough senior leaders, you come to a point where the remaining elites can't come to an effective consensus about the way forward. So you have a fracture in the system, and that's where you can potentially have the regime change that they keep talking about. But I mean, I think we're still far from that at the moment.
Now, I want to pick on that point of regime change. But if we could just take a step back and go to why this war started and look at, Nirmal, the stated objective of this war, right? The US claims this is for regime change. It won't be in Iraq or Afghanistan or Venezuela, Syria, Egypt, none of these. This is, like we discussed, they have a structure. It's very decentralized. So what do you make out of its stated reason for going into this war, and what do you think the real reason is?
Well, first of all, I must say I like the optimism that you have, and I wish Trump thought the same way, but unfortunately that's not the case. Yeah, so talking about why they started it, I think it's primarily because, although they claim that it's a nuclear power that they're worried about, they're also worried about the ballistic missile scheme, or the development of ballistic missiles by Iran, and also the support that they give to Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas. And, as much as I'd like to criticize US and Israel, we shouldn't forget the fact that despite the community living there suffering from unemployment, the youth unemployment is 30%, inflation 40%, currency, deflated to, almost to a point where you have to give 13 lakh Iranian rial to get a US dollar. So it's, while this is happening, every single year, the Iranian administration was giving $700 million US dollar in military aid and other support to Hezbollah, 150 million to Houthis, 150 million to Hamas. And that somehow doesn't add up, to the narrative that they're building. So I think the US is right as far as that is concerned. So, yeah, the support that they give to Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the other militias in Iraq and Syria, that's something that concerns the US. The development of ballistic missiles. And in fact, if you've listened to a podcast that Benjamin Netanyahu gave to Ben Shapiro in November 2025, he in fact mentioned, which I think is not true, I really don't think it's true at all, he mentioned that to the people of America, he was making an appeal. He said, you might be thinking that Iran at the moment have ballistic missiles that go as far as 2,000 kilometers. Is that what you think? I know for certain that they have intercontinental ballistic missiles that can go till 8,000 kilometers. Add 3,000 more kilometers to that, and that is the cost of America. Are you not worried yet? Do you not want to respond yet? Do you not want to support us yet? That was the appeal that he was making. I don't know how many people in the US believe that. Seems like they did, but I absolutely don't think it's true at all. But anyway, so those were the concerns, the stated concerns. Here, though, the real reason, which as Aditya and Anya mentioned, is, of course, regime change. Because regime change, in fact, fulfills all of these things. Ticks all of these solutions. They want to get rid of nuclear power. They want to get rid of the ballistic missile development. They want to get rid of support for the proxies. All is done if you change the regime. That's what Trump wants. But as Aditya rightly mentioned, it's very difficult to make that happen. because of the structure itself. They already have a 3-member council that has replaced the leadership, an expert panel of 88 members who will find another leader, and the IRGC that will support them in the offense and defense, and the Basij militia in case a protest breaks out. The Basij militia will take care of the protests, and the military worth about 800,000 people. So it's not that easy, number one. Number two, you spoke about Venezuela, where it was so easy. Just, you got rid of Maduro, end of story. We haven't had a discussion yet because everything is under control there. Delcy Rodriguez literally listens to Trump, and the US is now taking care of their oil and the money that comes from it. So it's not like Venezuela. Iran is at least 2 times bigger, has 3 times the population of Venezuela, and has a very complicated, sophisticated structure, as Aditya mentioned. So I think it is going to be hard for the US. The only way they can do it, though, is if you look at their history. From 2001 to 2026, they've made, I would say, 4 major, of course, several ones, but 4 major. 2001 2001 Afghanistan, 2003 Iraq, 2011 Libya, and 2026 Venezuela. In all of these cases, except Libya, they have had boots on the ground, which means they did a ground invasion. That's the only way that they can force a regime change, because of the fact that Iran does not have an opposition. You look at the last 3 years, we've had countries that have tried to, take out administrations and, create political change through protests. Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, they all had a strong opposition, and it is the opposition that led the charge, which is why they were able to, take out the administrations. That's not the case with Iran. Yes, Tanya,
I want to just disagree with one point where you said that Iran is believed to pay this much money to Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. every year, and Iran is in is financially strained. People there are not living in the best of conditions. All that is fine. The world is concerned, America is concerned. But to go to war, there are requirements, especially of imminent threat. And there was no imminent threat as far as America is concerned. In fact, when Rubio was asked, there is a press meet in which he says that, anyway, Iran would have been attacked by Israel, and then Iran would have immediately retaliated by attacking America. So we had to take the first mover and be defensive. So there was no imminent threat that way. That's what the world is questioning, right?
True. Absolutely agree with that. There was no imminent threat. Plus, they were actually making progress in 3 rounds of negotiations. In fact, Iran was ready to make compromises. That's what we've heard so far. And so that's what makes the world feel bad for Iran and angry at the US and Israel. That's where they went wrong. However, is it true that they provide support to the proxies? Yes. Is it true that they're getting involved in other areas and creating conflicts and lack of peace in the Middle East? True. But as you rightly said, is it the role or the responsibility of the United States to take care of that? Absolutely not. No country can take care of the administration or the issues that happens within a country. It is absolutely not US's right. Who had to do it? The United Nations had to do it. But unfortunately, the United Nations, as you know, and as we say in every discussion since the last war started with Russia and Ukraine, is essentially useless. I hate to say it, but essentially useless. And that's the reason why, it's a systemic failure that countries like China, countries like Russia and the United States can impose their will on smaller countries in the absence of a system where there is monitoring or negotiation that happens.
A quick point, Aditya, to you before we look at India's role here. The fact that, there has been a lot of protest from within Iran, but the way both the countries have gone right now and the killing of the children, 150, 180, whatever the number is, do you think that has actually been counterproductive? The fact that people are now so angry, do you think that will prevent a regime change?
So nobody likes being bombed. So, there's always a potential that people will rally around the flag. That's always there. So, Iranians may be protesting or even violently opposing the current regime, but they don't want necessarily Israel or the United States to come and bomb them and have a say in what sort of government they have. Look, but ultimately, from what we understand, Iran is a divided society. There are people who are opposed to the regime. There are people who have welcomed this war. There are people who support the regime. There's a whole range of people in that country. So I think it depends on really who you ask. Unfortunately, if you ask the parents of children who've been killed, they have a different view. But there might be others who might believe it's an acceptable cost if it means that they can get rid of the current regime.
bring the focus back to India. Is India's worry immediately going to be about oil prices and, of course, Indians living abroad, right? These will be our first two major concerns, right?
Absolutely. So India's big concerns are its diaspora and energy. Diaspora because we have something like 9.7 million people there, about a crore of people, most of them in the Gulf countries. So the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman. Besides that, so there's a question of their safety. One is their safety. B, while these regimes are stable, what might happen is, for example, if you have an economic crisis, you might find people out of a job and without a legal visa status, and so we might have to bring them back, fly them back in the thousands. In the remote contingency of having to do a mass evacuation, you'll have to use ships. The problem is that the Strait of Hormuz is a risky place to move ships through. So those risks do exist, and we can be sure that this contingency plan has already been worked out, in the government, just as a matter of routine. So I think that's one concern. Energy is, I think, the more immediate concern right now, because India imports something like 5 million barrels of oil a day, and about half of that comes through Hormuz from Iraq, from Saudi Arabia mostly. And also about half of India's gas, LNG, comes from the region, mostly from Qatar. So that's a lot of energy. India does have some strategic reserves. We hear different estimates of what it is. We probably have, between the refiners and India's own and strategic reserves, we probably have something like 45 days of reserves. So as of now, that buffer exists. But for India, the best outcome would be for the war to end right now and for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened up. There are ways in which this could play out. In 1987-88, during the so-called tanker war, when Iraq and Iran were fighting, basically the US escorted shipping through the strait. They might have to do something like that. The worst case, or at least the more extreme case, is that they basically start systematically taking out the Iranian Navy. That's a more complicated thing because Iran has lots of options. They can mine the Persian Gulf as well as the Strait. That's very hard to deal with. The coastline, if you include the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, is something like 1,500 kilometers. That's a lot of places where you can place anti-ship cruise missiles. And taking out every single battery on that coast it's going to be very time-consuming, probably involve casualties. So that's the worst-case scenario, and that will probably take weeks to pull off. In that time, it's possible oil prices will shoot up. As of now, there's slack in the system because Russia is still producing oil. We give up our Russian oil, but we may have to go back to it if that happens, if oil prices shoot up.
What would Trump say then, I wonder? Modi ji, my friend, is going back to Russia.
We'll know on the day that it happens.
Nirmal, what are your thoughts on the political reaction, right? Like, it's not good news for India at all if this continues for days or weeks, because unlike China, our reserves itself are not really good and we will run out of our reserves. Politically, of course, Narendra Modi, our Prime Minister, is getting a lot of flack, especially from the opposition, that he has not condemned the killing of Iran's supreme leader. And therefore, we have not sent a message to Iran that we at least condemn the killing or we are concerned about the killing. Is that really prudent on India's part, considering the dangers that we are in right now?
I think he was making the same choice that he did in the previous wars, which is to take a neutral stance, because in almost all the cases, either the US or Israel or Russia were involved. But in this case, as you said, instead, he could have at least said that he condemns the killing of the leader of a state, which is something that every you could say that. I mean, there's nothing that stops you from saying that, even politics. But you could, Iran and Israel, both of them are equally important to us. Surveillance, military aid, intelligence aid, and even in this meeting, they offered us the Iron Beam, which are all great things. But Iran also has been of great support to us. Before the US sanctions, even before Russia, they were the ones who promised us discarded oil with a longer credit period. They were the ones who helped us build a port called the Chabahar port, which is also unfortunately under attack. So yes, equal partner, but the response is kind of concerning, especially considering when Modi went there. I mean, just hours after he came back was the attack, which brings a lot of questions to our minds. And also his silence brings more questions. But I hope the party or the administration answers it soon enough.
What do you make out of the silence? Because in an editorial, Sonia Gandhi has said that India's silence is not neutral, it's abdication. Like Nirmal just said, the timing of Modi's visit to Israel, the very fact that he went in itself is very telling. But would he have known that there is an attack imminent? If he didn't, what does it say of India's place in the larger scheme of things? And who are India's friends really right now?
Okay,
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's a lot of questions.
I just did an LME
so,
just now on this.
Look, I won't comment on domestic politics much, except to say that everybody's doing their job. So the opposition is taking the government to task, and the government is doing what it has to do. And my personal view is that while there may be stylistic differences between the political parties and how they approach this, I think structurally, no matter who was in charge in India, India's tilt towards Israel would be there. Like I don't. That has, I think, very little to do with India's domestic politics. Yes, of course, the Prime Minister has a certain style. He apparently has an affection for Israel and possibly for Netanyahu. And there's they place a value in personal friendships and that's that sort of thing. I don't think that the optics of this look great, but I think it was a genuinely difficult choice, because if he had cancelled it, that may have also not looked great. So I think they made a choice. I think we can criticize it, but overall, I think that India has thrown its lot in with some countries in West Asia. This is sort of a departure from the past, but India has, the UAE is India's third largest trading partner. India's thrown in a lot with the UAE, with Israel, and Saudi Arabia, to the extent that that relationship means anything. I mean, because obviously you have a Saudi-Pakistan defense pact and so on. And, that comes with risks, and that comes with trade-offs. Iran has been, as Nirmal was pointing out, a traditional partner of India, a very valuable partner of India. Even going back to the 90s and early 2000s, we had a great convergence with Iran. We'd buy energy from them. We both had basically the same interests or very similar interests in Afghanistan. Actually after 9/11 was actually possibly a time in which, if American politics functioned was more functional, I think that, the Americans could have also had some sort of understanding with the Iranians, but then the Iraq invasion happened and stuff like that. So it's really sad in that sense that our relationship with Iran has declined. But nothing is permanent in international relations. We might suddenly find ourselves partners again sometime in the future. But right now, I think the choice that India has made was one driven by its interests, and I don't think that fundamental choice has much to do with who's in charge in India.
Is it India's interest, or is it the ideological interest also?
I mean, that's what I think. Ideology, if that's an interest, it's the cream on the cake. I think the cake is fundamentally India's a broader interest. India has business and energy ties with the countries in the Gulf. Israel is an important partner for India in its building its own defense capabilities as well as its own defense industry. These are important goals that India has, and it can't achieve them by not having those strong partnerships with those countries. And that might mean, for example, having a strained relationship with Iran for a while, and that might be a cost I think we're willing to pay.
On the ideological part, I was reading recently that if people in Israel could actually read some of the thoughts of the founding fathers of RSS, their pro-Nazi kind of thought, and what they thought of the persecution of Jews, they might be in for quite a shock. But I just want to understand from both of you. There was NAM. Now India is pretending to be neutral. I say pretend with responsibility because we don't know where they stand. So is there a difference between the non-alignment movement, where you deliberately, intentionally said we will not take sides, and now being somehow caught in a crossfire between multiple players?
Nirmal, you want to go first?
Yeah, well, I think, I hate to say this. I know we are the fourth largest economy in the world, but we are still a soft target for many countries, including the US. And we are not where China is or where Japan is. unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, it's a time where we have to take neutral stances to maintain our relationship with partners. And you saw that in the Russia-Ukraine war. But the good thing that this administration has been doing, I'll have to mention that as well, is that they have taken a stance, a neutral stance. And, every time if you look back at the timeline, every time he's visited Israel, in a few months' time or a year's time, he would have visited Palestine as well. I think it happened between 2014 and 16, if I remember it right. So India have always tried to balance it out, even between enemies like Israel and Palestine or like Russia and Ukraine. But as far as the statement goes, I think that is going to cast doubts on the minds of people. But I hope it will come out because and here's the other thing. It's easy to be in the opposition because you're not accountable or responsible to anybody. So it's easier to make the claim that, oh, you didn't do it, you should have done it. Why did you do it? Why did you go there at this time? Were you aware of it? Making questions is easier. But on the global stage, if you are the leader of a country like India, you'll have to be very careful when you deal with especially countries like Israel and the US. And we saw what the US could do to India if they wanted to. And we know that what would happen to us if we lose Israel. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. I mean, when you're in the opposition, easier to ask questions. When you're in charge, it's a little different.
Just two quick points of disagreement. One, yes, I mean, it must be easier to ask questions, but that's also their job. It is their job to criticize the foreign policy, so that I think we can't fault them on. And although till about 2016 or so, we did try to, when I say we, I mean India, we did try to do a balancing act. Do you think in the last few years that balance is clearly tilted with leaving us in no doubt where we stand, at least as far as Israel and Palestine is concerned?
I think so. And I think that's a conscious choice. There might maybe disagreement in the system. I mean, you might have people, career diplomats in the MEA who say, let's try and balance this out. But, I think that tilt has been happening and it's structural. I think it's because of India's interest. India has not seen a great deal of benefit from supporting the Palestinian cause. It's been a mostly thankless undertaking. So while we might have a great deal of sympathy for it, ultimately, if you're a political leader in India, you have to represent the interests of 1.4 billion people. And, you will have to go to where the money is and where the arms are. And I think that's what the government is doing.
Pragmatism over basic humanity problem.
Okay, since this has gotten too serious, Nirmal, are you watching news channels and getting shocked? Because I see news channels and I'm getting like mini heart attacks every time. I wonder what people living in India who have their relatives abroad, families abroad, are you like getting calls from people saying, is it really so bad?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was shocked because my sister lives in Qatar and I was giving a discussion in a Malayalam news channel. I said, things are pretty bad there. And she said, nothing's wrong here. You don't have to worry. I mean, yes, we hear sounds, but it's being intercepted. They're not attacking people. And to be honest, Iran's strategy is not to attack and kill people. Their strategy is to, create a disturbance, not destruction. Disturbance in the regular life of people, disturbance in travel, disturbance in the economy, disturbance in tourism, so that the US feels pressure or Israel feels pressure and succumbs to that pressure. But here's what I think of pressure. When you talk about Israel or America falling to pressure, how about Palestine? Like, Pooja mentioned, 2.5 years, 70,000 deaths, 170,000 people injured, lakhs of people in poverty. They were not pressurized. They didn't succumb to that pressure. So do you think 150 people would make a difference to the US and Israel? I don't think so.
So what is the end goal? I mean, we are continuously talking about regime change, but in America itself, Trump is under a lot of pressure, right? People from his own coterie are now saying this was a bad choice because they don't see an end result of this war. What can be the end result?
Also, I'm sorry, but also he came to power on the anti-war, I'll end wars plank, right?
So I think that this is a really unpopular war in the United States. Usually wars become unpopular in America when Americans start suffering casualties or suffer economic pain. But I think this has been remarkably unpopular because they haven't actually even done the basic groundwork to explain the rationale of this war. So yes, it's true that America, as Nirmal had also said earlier, Trump might be under a lot of political pressure to back down. That doesn't mean the Israelis are going to back down. And it doesn't mean that when the Israelis go to war again with Iran, the Americans aren't going to back them materially. So, for that reason alone, I don't think that this is while we might have this round of fighting might end in the next few days or weeks, I think there's unfortunately a lot more bloodshed to come.
But what is the end result that they're looking at? That there's a regime there which is favorable to them or which they approve of? That's
Amiable
it?
to the US?
So if you're Israel, yes, I think Israel basically wants this regime to go, or just have chaos and civil war in Iran. I think that would be their ideal endgame, because that would eliminate basically all their serious rivals in the region.
But regime meaning everybody who's now
In the revolutionary guard.
Not only those people who may become supreme leaders or those who are in the line of succession, everybody should be dead.
Yeah, well, either dead or co-opted in some way or gone into exile, whatever. So that I think that's their goal. I don't know if they can achieve that, but I think they will take whatever wins they get. If they can continue to weaken Iran so that it cannot reconstitute as a more serious threat, they will do that. As Nirmal pointed out, the actual business of knocking out every single manufacturing facility, especially for cheap drones like the Shahid, and to a lesser extent with ballistic missiles, is really hard. And it's going to require, it's basically going to require the Israelis to have a continuous air campaign, and because that's all they're doing, right? It's entirely an air campaign, and that's not something that's going to get done in a few days or weeks. They'll have to keep coming back at it. And this is a big departure from the Israelis, because prior to 2023, 2024, the way they were doing this in Iran was through covert means, and they were sabotaging nuclear centrifuges. They were attacking and killing scientists, and all of that. They were doing all of these things to slow down the nuclear program. What they didn't really do is, help take out the ballistic missiles and the drones. I think that they're at that stage now. They've eliminated, they basically operationally degraded Hezbollah and Hamas to the extent that they're going to take a while to reconstitute. And now they're sort of applying something like that broad strategy to Iran. It's a much harder target, but I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I think people are confused about the daddy-son relationship in Israel and America, because people are like, who's the daddy? Is it the United States or is it Israel? Now, you might assume, or many people might assume, that it's more like, Israel saying, Daddy, I want this, and America gets it. That's what people thought for a very long time. But now people in the US are starting to realize it's more like, son, wash my car, and America does it. That's more like it right now, and which is one of the reasons why Trump might lose votes, and there's already a split in the conservative movement. If you look closely, Tucker Carlson left. He's a big part of the conservative movement. That he left. Now he's campaigning against the U.S. doing a war in Iraq and against the U.S. supporting Israel. Candace Owens left for the same reason. Charlie Kirk, who died, was about to leave, and Candace Owens is doing a wonderful investigation associated to it. He was about to leave, and there are many conspiracies associating to that as well. So this is going to harm Trump a great deal when he moves forward, because he doesn't have the support. And plus, as Pooja pointed out, the only reason Trump won, one of the reasons was obviously Charlie Kirk. The other reason was, for every campaign that he went to, especially in places like Michigan, where they have over 250,000 Muslim votes, he went there and he said, Biden's not able to do anything in Palestine. You leave it to me. I'll stop it on day one. That's what Trump said. He didn't do it. Not only did he not do it, he also promised the people of the United States that I will stop all the wars, all the existing wars. I will not start another war. I will not send a military personnel abroad. You will not see the blood of a military person abroad. All of these terms have now gone to the dustbin. People have died. They've been sent. They will be sent, obviously, if there is a ground invasion. They were sent to Venezuela as well. And so, yes, the people are starting to realize this, and a lot of people are flipping, and those flips will be reflected in the votes as well in November 2026.
Just in a lighter vein, on that daddy-son relationship, I read somewhere that Netanyahu is the worst US president in history. So, yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that. But before we wrap up, we must get recommendations from everyone. Pooja, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, I want to recommend Stanley Johnny's The Original Sin. This was relevant 2 years ago. It's relevant very much today to understand the larger implications of what's happening here.
If I would, if I could draw your attention to a website that my brother has created in the last 2 weeks after my donation. It is a website called onedonormanylives.com. It is to increase awareness about organ donation. And I request all of you to please visit the website and go through some messages that are there and maybe consider if this act is not about just one person having donated a kidney following a legal battle. I want this awareness to spread and the discussion to happen in every household. If every household can have this talk without a social stigma, the moment we start thinking, oh, why are you talking about all that now? Why unauspicious talk about death and all that? So let us have a aware, dialogue about this, and please maintain your health so that you can become an organ donor. Thank you.
I'd recommend Wali Nasr's book, Iran's Grand Strategy, A Political History. It's a very readable history of how realpolitik, ideology and institutions have shaped Iran's international behavior, both pre-revolution and since the revolution. And it's a surprisingly easy read.
Yeah, I mean, considering the context of the war, I think I would suggest Robert Greene's lesser-known book, We Know the 48 Laws of Power. He's also written a book called The 33 Strategies for War. And at this point of time, if you're following the war, if you want to know more and make self-assessments, that's a good book to read.
See, I knew that these guys will come up with some hard recommendations like this. So I also have a book on Iran to recommend, but it's a very easy read. It's called City of Lies. I read this many years ago. It's by an Iranian British journalist called Ramita Nawai. So she talks about it's not fiction actually. It's real people, but she sorts of puts them in the city. It's 8 different people and the lives they lead in Tehran, and it's all on one street of Tehran, which is from one end to the other. So it's a young woman, a militant, so many different examples. And when you read that book, you really feel like you are living in Tehran with those people.
I don't want to feel that way.
No,
right?
but it's a very nicely written book because it has all the contradictions. She starts by saying, in Iran, people lie a lot. You have to lie constantly to yourself, in society, amongst your family, friends, because religion and everything is weighing down upon you, right? And all the choices that they make. It's a fantastic book. I don't know if it's fully written in some Western view or whatever, but I really enjoyed reading.
There was another book, I think I'd recommended this before, Not Without My Daughter. That also gives a peek into the Iranian society from a woman's point of view. So, yeah.
So maybe you should take a break from Takshashila's heavy books and read one.
But this is also very depressing.
I'm happy to read City of Lies. It's a great recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you to this week's producer Megha Mugundan, our production assistant Ajay, Sukanya and Yana. And like I said, we have 2 very important stories this week. One is on the life, death and afterlife of Christian apologetic Praveen Pagadala, who died last year in Andhra Pradesh, and a new NDTV for a new India. That's another story that we put out. So do read both these and join us next week on South Central.